Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator. And I've got the boys together again. We're doing another collaboration. Me, Mark Reid, and Grayson from his channel Base Theory. And you should definitely go subscribe to that channel as well as Mark Reid's. I want to help both of them grow. So just in case anybody doesn't know of you guys and your content already, Mark, why don't you just take a sec to introduce yourself? We'll kick it over to Grayson, and then after that, we're going to be reacting to a video that's 6 proofs of God's existence, and it's really bad. So,
oh yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Reid. I'm a content creator of mostly debates. I love doing debate. If you want to have an atheist ask very awkward questions of theists and enjoy that sense of cognitive dissonance, I'm your man. I love doing that. And I do a lot of collabs with my friends Grayson and Atheist Junior, who are amazing. And if you're not subscribed, you really should be, because they do some awesome work. And over to you, Grayson.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Yeah, like they said, my channel is Based Theory. So I do a lot of debates right now, mostly with creationists, but I want to branch out to more topics as well. So if you're interested in debating with an atheist, go ahead, email me, email Mark, email AJ. I mean, we're all available for all kinds of interesting debates. I just most recently did a debate on the Big Bang, and I also do videos on random subjects in science and history. So next week I'm coming out with one all about the Islamic black stone at the Kaaba and the weird history behind that, and how it potentially involves a trans Roman emperor. So very interesting, fun video. So look out for that. If you like science or history topics, I talk about a bunch of them. So check out the channel. But the last video that the three of us did together was a ton of fun, just sort of making fun of Kent Hovind's understanding of what holds atoms together. So I know that we're going to have a lot of fun with this video, and I am open to, at the end of this video, being convinced that God exists. So let's do this thing.
All right. And if you guys if you want me to pause it, just let me know.
Socrates once stated that we should follow the argument wherever it leads. When we look at the most profound question of life, does God exist? We should certainly follow his advice. When we do, we'll find evidences that show us God is real.
I just feel like if you hear somebody say the word evidences, that's just a red flag right there.
Well, if you look closely, there's clearly evidence in Africa and evidence in the Indian Ocean and evidence in China and Russia. And, oh, Mark, that might be some evidence over in Australia, it looks like.
I think only the top of Australia, though. There's no evidence where I live, apparently. So, yeah, I think that's Madagascar. There's evidence coming out of there.
Oh,
yeah.
Lots of evidence coming out of Madagascar as of late.
Yeah, so the evidence is a word. It's not a misuse of the word. So you have evidence as in a collection of facts that support something. So if you have multiple collections, that is evidences, right? So it's evidence is a collection of facts. Multiple collections is evidences plural.
I only listen to people that say evidences.
Evidences. Well, that's way too fancy for me, Grayson. But the whole thing is like follow the evidence where it leads, but it doesn't lead to God, and you shouldn't bias that evidence to where you want it to lead. And that's the whole point that Socrates was trying to make. He was saying follow it to its natural conclusion, not the conclusion you want. So how much of this will be evidences, as he says, evidences that leads to the actual conclusion unbiased, or what will lead to what he wants to be true?
Let's look at 6 proofs that show God exists. Number 1, the universe must have a cause. The most fundamental law of science is the law of cause and effect.
Okay, pause
and it says,
this is the most fundamental law of science, is the law of cause and effect?
Yeah, I'd say it's one of the sort of fundamental laws of reality, that causality, basically talking about the law of causality, essentially. But the quote's really interesting, because see if you can spot what additional word he jams in here that doesn't appear anywhere else in when you sort of investigate the laws of causality kind of thing. See if you can spot the word. Okay, challenge for you guys. Go.
Yeah,
Go. I've got to see this.
I feel like we're gonna get
Sorry,
into this, but why must it have a cause? Like, maybe you'll explain that.
Yeah.
That for every material effect we see, there is a cause that came before it or was simultaneous to it, and that is greater than it.
Stop. Okay, so what's the word he added there?
Material?
Yes, material, right. So he's talking about Aristotle, who Aristotle basically said for every effect there is a cause, and that's one of the basic building blocks of the laws of causality. But he's added material, which Aristotle didn't say. He just said for every effect there has to be a cause, basically. So he's kind of added this in, but we don't know that's true. Because Sean Carroll and other physicists have a leaning towards an eternal universe, one where time slows down the closer you get to the start of the universe until one moment lasts an eternity, essentially. So that's not necessarily the case. We just don't know. Yeah. And even if the universe did have a cause, what's to say that it's God? Like, why can't it be a naturalistic cause? Why does it have to be a God? And that naturalistic cause could be eternal. It could have something else. That he's basically just front loading it with where he wants it to go, not where the evidence is actually leading.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like a simple way of saying this would just be for every, like, it just cause and effect. But material effect, I couldn't find a definition on Google for that term other than like real estate. It's not something that I've heard before, a material effect in like a terms of philosophy or logic or reason. So it just seems like you said, he's adding a word that's just really arbitrary.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not how you communicate effectively.
Well, no, it's kind of going back to that old special pleading kind of thing. So he's basically saying that naturalistic things need a cause, but supernatural things do not. The question becomes, well, how do you know supernatural things don't need a cause? What if they need a cause as well? You've just asserted that to be true and then said, well, your thing is material, it needs a cause. My thing is supernatural, it doesn't need a cause. And that seems very, as you say, AJ, arbitrary. Like, how did you find that out? How did you come to this knowledge? So, that's the special pleading that theists do.
The universe is a material effect. So what caused the universe? You see, if you don't believe in a creator, then you have to suggest something like a singularity. That's what is popular today, that there was some type of singularity that exploded in something called the Big Bang. But then when you try to get down to the bottom...
Hold on. Nothing exploded, sir. There wasn't an explosion. And you don't have to, we don't say that the singularity was the cause necessarily. We say that that's the state the universe was in very early in its formation, was a singularity. I don't think I've heard physicists sort of say, hey, it was caused by the singularity. I think that was the state that caused it to expand. But did that create, or is that the origin of the universe?
It's this weird, it's this weird false dichotomy that they're setting up where either you have a creator or you have a singularity. It's a weird, illogical statement where there are tons of other explanations that don't have to be a creator and don't have to involve a singularity. There's no reason that you would have to say, if it's not God, then it's a singularity. That doesn't follow at all logically.
Yeah.
And plus, what about all the other... Oh, sorry, AJ, go ahead.
Okay. And singularities, they're not talked about by cosmologists because they're like popular. It's just the point in the mathematics where our laws of physics break down. I mean, a singularity is just a mathematical concept. it's like a region of space where the density of matter or the curvature of space-time becomes infinite. And like when you start getting infinite values in your math, something is really screwed up.
I also just want to make a comment just in broad gesture, because their broad topic here is about the law of cause and effect and causality, which again, AJ, to echo what you were saying, I kind of question the fundamental basis for which they're even, I mean, from like, right, just like a deductively, like a rationalistic perspective, any kind of law of cause and effect is kind of impossible. I mean, it's kind of like Hume's problem of induction. And then from an empirical perspective, like we might take in science, like cause and effect is sort of taken as a given, like it's a granted for the sake of being able to do like, scientific abduction and experiment, and like it's taken as a given from that perspective. But from like an epistemological kind of perspective, I would just think that causality is sort of it's more of a byproduct of the fact that we have to construct narratives of events in order to understand and make sense of them. So like we put a narrative onto the ordering of events and have a distinct cause and effect relationship as a process of the way that we as conscious entities have to understand these processes. But I don't know if you can really, I mean, applying it as like some sort of fundamental tenet of reality, as this law of cause and effect, I don't think is like philosophically, metaphorically, or physically, logically really that well supported. Or like at the very least, the idea of a first cause is definitely not. I mean, a first cause has never been demonstrated. The metaphysical necessity of a first cause is also not been demonstrated. So I don't know. I mean, I'm basically questioning the entire grounding assumptions for this, saying, oh, well, cause and effect, that proves God's existence right there, even beyond their horrible butchering of Big Bang cosmology they just did there.
Of what's a singularity? Well, what we hear from the scientific community that suggests to us, the cosmologists, they say, well, a singularity was something that popped into existence from nothing. Do you know that if there...
No, nobody is saying that. That was the name. Like this was all caused by one book, like one book that had a catchy name called The Universe from Nothing by Lawrence Krauss. And he was basically saying, well, you can sort of consider a quantum field to be nothing because there's no matter or energy. They're just sort of quantum particles within it. But he's not saying it was nothing as in not literally no thing. Look at it like this. If you put matter and antimatter together, they annihilate. Right, they annihilate. They break down into quantum particles, so there's nothing there. That's the kind of nothing that he's talking about, as opposed to sort of a philosophical no thing, like, there is nothing in my room made of uranium kind of thing, like that absence of anything whatsoever. Two totally different concepts, but this has been used more times than, and the thing is, the people using it, the people that will say, oh, you think the universe came from nothing, you'll say, well, that's not what that means. And they'll say, oh, yeah, I know. And it's like, then why are you saying it? Like, why are you like trying to intimate this thing that you don't you're straw manning, and you know that you're straw manning? It baffles me. It's so strange.
Look at what they literally have on screen right here. Look at this definition. A singularity, something that popped into existence from nothing. Like,
oh, that's the definition physicists use. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They have to know that they are completely fabricating this definition. This is a completely made up definition. I mean, in order to put this on the screen right now, they have to be cognizant of the fact that they're just spewing BS.
Oh, absolutely.
Any amount of research while they were making this would have caused them to be aware that that is not what a singularity is. That's not the definition. Like, that's literally just
right.
That's a complete falsehood that they're putting on screen.
Yeah. Okay. We have a super chat from Pinworm for $2. It says, "Hi, Mark. Hi, AJ. You guys rock." Grayson, I don't know why you were left out, but
Yeah.
I think it's implied.
I do not
that
rock.
They said hi, Grayson, also. But
Thanks, Pinworm.
I actually have a quote prepared from Lawrence Krauss, so I'm gonna read that. So he says from his book, he says, "You take space, get rid of all the particles, all the radiation, and it actually carries energy. And that notion is that, in fact, empty space, once you allow gravity into the game, what seems impossible is possible. It sounds like it would violate the conservation of energy for you to start with nothing and end up with lots of stuff. But the great thing about gravity is it's a little trickier. Gravity allows positive energy and negative energy, and out of nothing, you can create positive energy particles. And as long as a gravitational attraction produces enough negative energy, the sum of their energy can be zero. And in fact, when we look out at the universe and try to measure its total energy, we come up with zero. And so, like Mark said, on our human macroscopic scale, like you could look at an empty glass and say there's nothing in this glass because there's no liquid in it, but there's air in that glass. There's tons of oxygen molecules as well as other gases that are in our atmosphere, like nitrogen and other things. And even on a smaller molecular or atomic level, there's tons of things going on within that glass, and the molecules rubbing against each other and moving. That's what creates heat. So you can say that there's nothing, but that word is it doesn't really have meaning unless you're talking about different on a smaller scale. On our scale, we can talk about nothing, but it's not a really useful term, I think, to say something popped into existence from nothing. And this is just a straw man. So
I would say that logically, it doesn't even make sense. Like for the statement that nothing exists, if it exists, then it is something. So logically, the statement that nothing can even exist, it just falls flat on the face of it. Like definitionally, just the meaning of words.
Okay, so from Beamsy for $5 Australian, it says, "Hey AJ, Grayson, and Mr. Baldy Bald Shiny Top."
Okay.
So
Cheers,
thank you, Beamsy. I mean, I don't know why you have to.
Your audience is
that,
brutal on guests, AJ.
No,
Jeez.
Beamsy's a friend of mine. He's
Okay.
being Beamsy. Yeah, he's a friend of mine. He's just poking me a bit.
I didn't know.
That's okay.
I timed him out.
Nice.
Sorry.
Serves you right, Beamsy. Serves you right. You deserve that
Ever
one.
were
No,
a
I
time-
fully support your efforts.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
When there was nothing, that's exactly what we would have now. The idea that something popped into existence from nothing is simply not a scientific idea. You see, they're suggesting that that singularity is somehow natural, but it behaves supernaturally. They say that singularity wouldn't have...
saying, like literally nobody is saying that the singularity is behaving supernaturally. You are saying that. You are basically, because your religion has creation ex nihilo in it, creation out of literally nothing, that's basically what you're saying. We're saying that, hey, there's a naturalistic explanation. It involves quantum fields and quarks popping in and out of existence, and sort of potentialities collapsing, and a whole range of stuff that is probably way over my head. But nobody is saying that that's supernatural. Well, nobody our side anyway, the scientific side.
Yeah, I've never heard any kind of claim that anything about the Big Bang model, inflation, or the singularity is in any way, shape, or form supernatural. So that's another falsehood. And we're only 30 seconds into the first argument?
Laws of nature. Well, then, so what are we left with? We're left with the fact that the universe had a beginning and it was not a natural cause. It was something above nature.
Yeah, we are not left with the fact that the universe had a beginning. We don't know whether or not the universe had a beginning. The Big Bang model doesn't claim to be the beginning of the universe. I mean, it doesn't have any explanation for the beginning itself. It only explains how the universe evolved from like a very hot, dense state.
Right.
So there's no claims that this was definitely the metaphysical beginning of the universe. There is no experimental evidence, empirical evidence that the universe definitively had a beginning. And what does it mean not from a natural cause? Why can't it be from a natural cause? I mean, I hear like, oh, well, if the universe came from somewhere, it had to be supernatural. No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, the way cosmologists describe the Big Bang Theory, they don't talk about t equals 0 before like 10 to the minus 33 seconds. We don't claim to know anything about what's actually going on, because again, that's when the laws of physics break down. That's when you have the fundamental forces that we recognize in our universe merged into one. And we don't really have a way to mathematically describe that time period because it's Planck time. So I don't think that the Big Bang Theory is saying that we know for a fact that the universe had a beginning and this is when it started. It's just our understanding of the universe started after this arbitrary time period that seems like it's a very, very short time, again, to our human time span, but a lot can happen in that Planck time.
And we don't even know if the universe did have a beginning.
Yeah.
Because of the way that time works, because our local time is only in this universe. So sort of the question of, well, what was before the universe is like saying, well, what was before time? It's a nonsense question. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's a misapplication of category. If Sean Carroll is right, and I don't think this is consensus, but if he's right, then the universe could have slowed and slowed and slowed until that one moment at the beginning is an infinite time. But we're not sure of that. We don't know. There's other theories like multiverse and sort of M theory, membrane theory.
Roger Penrose has his ideas on it.
Right. But the fact of the matter is that just because we don't know doesn't mean that you can. And I want to point out this. It's not only the false dichotomy of it's either natural or it's supernatural. It's also the false dichotomy that they're making. It's either natural or God. What about the millions of other supernatural things you could come up with that aren't God? And why are they eliminated? Why isn't fairies eliminated? Why isn't a magic unicorn eliminated? Why isn't some kind of magical field eliminated? It's because instead of following the evidence, what they're doing is following their bias. They want to arrive at God. So that's the reason for these false dichotomies and things like that. Oh, well, if it's not natural, it's got to be God. And I also want to point out, this isn't evidence for God. I mean, it's a stretch. I don't believe it, but you could argue that it's evidence against Big Bang Theory, but it's not evidence for God. Like, present your evidence for a God, not against something else.
Okay, just before I hit play, I'm going to read the super chats. So another one from Pinworm for $2. It says, "Sorry, hi Grayson, I'm sure you rock too." Yes, I agree.
Grayson does rock. Yes, yes.
And then for $20 from some old dude, thank you. How generous of you. I really appreciate that. On the microscopic scale, empty space is full of quantum fields which are fluctuating. Some physicists imply that the ultimate reality is simply quantum fields. I believe Sean Carroll talks about that in some of his lectures. Well said. And thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
It was something super nature, something supernatural. And so when we see the material effect of the universe, we can know that there was a supernatural creator that caused the universe. Proof number 2, design.
Yeah, so he really just sort of like pieced together all of these shitty non-arguments and then said, like, where did we even talk about a creator? Like, did I miss that? Where does he get a creator from?
It sounded like the Kalam cosmological argument, just
right,
super annotated, like broken down version of it that skips a lot of parts.
Well, I think the Kalam is even better than this one.
Well, the Kalam doesn't say it has to be like the Kalam ends, or I guess I should say the classic Kalam just ends with the universe had a cause, right? That's all it ends with. So you've got to do something like what William Lane Craig is, and then add all of these superlatives on sort of very shaky evidence that it had to be more powerful than the universe. It had to be timeless and spaceless and all this kind of stuff.
Supernature.
So he's sort of, yeah, well, he's sort of skipped over all of that to say, hey, well, it's supernatural. It has to be a creator. Why is that? And if it has to be, you know, if it can't be explained, it's got to be supernatural. It's a whole load of nothing that's just stacked on top of one another. But yeah, he's done the skip of William Lane Craig's usual arguments of, you know, timeless, spaces, immaterial, and things like that, and just jumped to the end. So that's why it seems like a complete non sequitur.
Demands
for the second
a
one
designer.
here, that design demands a designer. I just want people to pay attention to. Let's see if he actually lists any criteria by which we can tell that something is designed versus just complex, because complexity does not imply design all by itself.
Right.
What implies design is empirical evidence of design. If there's a past history that every time we find these objects, they are designed, that would be empirical evidence that this object was designed and thus had a designer. So we'll see. I don't think he's going to provide any criteria about how you can tell if something's designed or not. He's just going to gesture broadly and say, well, just look at it.
Look at
It
trees.
is a truism that everybody recognizes that this universe looks designed. In fact, when we see the various different aspects of nature and
Really quickly, I really dislike when creationists do this, because Ken Hovind does this all the time when he just says, oh, everybody agrees on this. Like, I don't agree that the universe looks designed. And if you're saying designed for humans, it absolutely doesn't seem designed, because it's inhospitable to life in general, but especially human life. Like, we would die anywhere else in the universe other than this like one specific planet that we just happen to live on. So I don't think the universe is designed, especially not for life, or especially for human life.
Yeah, and I just want to mention top-down versus bottom-up systems. That when we design something from top-down, like we basically take an entire system and we make it with a goal in mind, with all the systems sort of being designed to work in concert, what we see is a lot of simplicity, a lot of efficiency when we top-down design things. When bottom-up design happens, now bottom-up design is when you have disparate systems that are kind of cobbled together. They're not designed with an entire goal in mind. They're systems with different goals that are sort of jammed together. That kind of bottom-up process, you'll get a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of things that are superfluous and things that don't quite match up. And that's what we see in nature. It doesn't look like a top-down designed system. It looks like a system that's bottom-up, that basically just cobbled together, systems working with other systems that were never designed to do so. And that's what we find a lot of the time. And it's stupid to Henry, you're absolutely right. It is look at the trees.
Yeah,
it's kind of begging the
Mark,
question.
have you ever though, as a counterpoint, have you ever seen a sunset? Have you ever looked at
I've seen one or two, yes. I've seen one or two. Have you ever looked at an eclipse and seen that the moon is about the same size as the sun? Have you ever done that?
Hold on, buddy. I'm about to convert right now.
My counter argument to Grayson's point, have you ever seen a tsunami or hurricane?
No, I haven't. Therefore, God exists.
Or winter storm in Texas where your power goes out for like 2 weeks.
Dang, you got me there.
Oh, gotta love it.
And there's things like the recurrent laryngeal nerve that goes all the way down, loops around your aorta and goes all the way back up to sort of reach a point that's so close to one another. It's the stupidest design you've ever seen. Have you seen an eclipse?
Yeah, I don't know why I feel like your whole thing about the bottom up was just dissing my factory and Factorio, but I'm going to let that go.
It 100% was. But then again, that's all factories and Factorio.
True,
to start off with today,
mine especially. All right, let's go.
See birds and squirrels and trees, and we see all of the things that they do so well Many times we as humans, we try to copy and mimic that design, but
Wait,
often
how does a kingfisher copy a bullet train copies a kingfisher? That's a new one to me. Is that a thing? I didn't see that. What?
I think
They're both
they're both the same
aerodynamic.
color. They're both the same color.
Maybe. I mean, is he talking about the head for aerodynamics? Is that?
I
'Cause
think
if
that's the
aero-
only conclusion that I can logically draw from this, but it's a stretch.
Well, I mean, if aerodynamics is a thing, we just do things that are aerodynamic, and
Yep.
evolution evolves things that are aerodynamic. Like, it doesn't mean that one's necessarily okay. That's a weird one.
Yeah, it's like to anybody who's ever said like, "Oh, I wish I was a bird." It's like, do you want to have a cloaca? Because I don't.
humans, we try to copy and mimic that design, but often we don't do nearly as well as the design that we see in nature. We look at the design of the human.
Sometimes we do better, and this is something I wanted to point out. Like, we design computers, right? They can do mathematical calculations way better than humans. I'm sorry, they just can. You get a supercomputer, it is vastly better than a human's ability to calculate mathematics and logical processes. Does that mean it can do things that humans can? No, but it's clearly better at that one thing. And yeah, there's some things that we do that are way better. That's why we can use binoculars and stuff like that. It's because those things are better at doing what they do than our eyes are actually not that great. Octopus eyes are actually better than ours.
Yeah,
but,
Mark, I was going to bring that up as well, because they want to focus on, sometimes nature does things better than human designers can engineer. But you're exactly right. That's the first thing I thought of too, was like, well, sometimes human engineers can do way better than nature. So I was looking at the artificial photosynthesis machines that we have, where like the amount of improvement in efficiency that humans have been able to do photosynthesis at better than photosynthesis in nature is like orders of magnitude greater efficiencies in human design technology. So it's kind of like, the guy is kind of lying by omission here to leave out all of the things that humans can design better than nature.
Well, I think that humans' ability to kill things is better than what God designed. Like, we can kill stuff way better than any animal on the face of the planet using their natural weapons by an order of magnitude.
But better than God? God's pretty good at killing.
I don't know. I mean, and when we're not comparing our technology to God, we're comparing our technology to God's designs. We've designed more destructive technology than God.
Well, I can solve CAPTCHA better than a computer can, just saying. And from some old dude again for $10, it says, design demands first a good definition of design so I can look at something and decide whether it's designed or not. None of them have ever given a good definition. Well, that is just creationists. If they didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all, right?
Right.
Body and the
and they compare design to nature, and it's like, well, hang on a second. How are you differentiating between designed versus nature? Because something stands out about things that humans design, but nature's designed as well, according to the theists. So what stands out about the human-made thing? The answer is, we know it was made by humans. That's what stands out.
But Mark, you just gotta look at it. You just gotta look at it.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Yeah, look at the trees. I forgot. Back.
Look at the sun.
I'll go back to the
directly
trees.
at the sun, Mark.
Look, I haven't seen a lunar eclipse in a while. It's been a while. A solar eclipse. Sorry, I have to go out and look at that. I'm sorry. I'm just giving P-Town a lot of crap right now.
And the arm and the leg and the brain, and we see that those are some of the most advanced, technologically savvy pieces of equipment ever put together, and we try to mimic them and copy them, and we can't do it as well. Why? Because this universe exhibits design from the starry sky at night to the fingertips on your hand. The design is overwhelming. It's everywhere. Where does design originate? Well, what you and I both know is that when you see things that function and they're complex, that design comes from an
Complex, there we go.
intelligent designer. Big explosions just simply don't bring about order. They don't.
Pause. Pause. Oh my God. I thought we were done with the Big Bang falsehoods, but well, obviously not an explosion. Secondly, if you're talking about order, I mean, like the most high order state in the history of the universe was like, how do you get more order than a singularity? I mean, it's only been less order as the universe has gone on in the Big Bang model. I mean, we're getting more chaotic. We're not getting more ordered than in the past within the framework of the Big Bang model. So they can't even get that right. They just need to put, they can't even go one criteria without making a stupid straw man about the Big Bang. Can't even get 1 point in without it.
Yeah, but overall order, Grace, and that doesn't mean that things can't become ordered in certain parts of the universe. It's the overall entropy increases. So there's no reason why, and you see this a lot in chaos, sort of chaos mechanics, that things that are chaotic will spontaneously produce order, right? That like pendulums swinging on a thing. That pendulum thing is fantastic because it shows even though you do it randomly, just the natural physics will, it's called spontaneous synchronicity. Things will line up as ordered patterns in chaos. That's just the way that it happens. So the whole idea that we can't have a planet forming or life forming, or it has to go to, everything has to go towards disorder, is not necessarily true. It's just the overall disorder increases, not specific parts of it.
Well, I think that example of the two pendulums is really interesting because I don't know if you saw the same video I did, but it was showing two pendulums and it's on like a swinging table. And what happens is eventually the motion of the two pendulums, even though they're out of sync, the motion of the individual parts within a system influences the entire system to where it's all in sync. No matter how you start off the two pendulums, they'll always eventually become in sync because there's specific rules that are governing the motion. So if you have a system, even if it's a complex system, if you have specific rules that govern that system, eventually you'll find some sort of order that comes out of that chaos.
Yeah, and you can do that with any amount of pendulums. It can be 50, it can be 100. It doesn't matter. They will all sync up. It's actually quite fascinating.
Cause things that are functional and complex to come into existence. The design we see in the universe demands a supernatural, intelligent designer.
You're presupposing that it's designed, though. This is why I hate this argument.
Yeah, and we've seen complex things emerge from more simple like axioms and rules and processes. Like complex chaotic systems can emerge naturally. We've seen complexity arise naturally. Nothing about it suggests or demands that, one, it is design, and two, that it requires a supernatural intelligent designer. I mean, there's a logical leap there that is unfounded.
Yeah. And I think okay. I've heard some creationists say that like complexity can't increase in nature, but if you just look at crystals right there, that's a good example of
Black holes are another example too. As they get bigger, they become more complex. And like this is mathematically like you can mathematically demonstrate that complexity increases with volume of black holes.
Snowflakes. I'm not pointing out any evidence. I'm just calling you two snowflakes. That's all. But yeah, and the whole idea that design demands a supernatural, why the supernatural? You can make the same argument that we were designed by interdimensional aliens. Like there's no evidence for that. I don't believe that because there's no evidence for it. But your idea of this false dichotomy between natural and a god is not true, because I can give another example of something that doesn't fall into those two categories. So it is a false dichotomy. And they do this all the time. This is what they do. They sort of say, hey, it's either natural or it's God. No, why is that a true dichotomy? It's not. If you want to say, hey, it's natural or not natural, that's a true dichotomy. Everything falls into one of those two categories, but not natural or God. That is not a true dichotomy.
And again, from some old dude for $5, it says, life is not designed in any way similar to human design. Evolution has no goal, whereas I would argue that most human designs are goal-driven. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And thank you for the super chats. It's very generous of you.
Yeah, they're good comments.
Proof
I
number
agree
3.
with all of them.
Yeah.
Life demands a supernatural life giver.
Pause it. How is this any different than the last argument? I mean, the last one was design demands a supernatural designer. Now he's saying
Right.
life
And
demands
the
a
first one.
supernatural life giver.
And the universe must have a cause.
Oh yeah, the universe has to have a cause giver, design has to have a designer, and life has to have a life giver. Okay, totally 6 different proofs. Got it.
Well, I love the video that you did, Grayson. That's you like crashing Ken Oven's stream that he was on when you start talking about life from non-life, and he says that organic means that something is alive. And then you're like, no, Ken, I took organic chemistry.
Yeah,
which I doubt Kent has.
Of course not. But he can read. He reads books. He's a readaholic. He's very addicted to readahol. So,
Well, this is sort of just an argument from incredulity. He's basically saying that I don't believe that life could have come from anywhere but a supernatural life giver, right? That's basically what he's saying. He's saying, I personally can't believe that life could have arose naturally. That's his entire argument.
Let's go ahead.
It's a fallacious one.
Let's let him make his argument, but you've basically spoiled it there, Mark. I mean, that is his argument.
What?
Sure.
You see, in the material world, we have come to understand that there is a law of biology called the law of biogenesis. Law of biogenesis simply says this, that in this...
I guess, do the quote. This law of biogenesis, it's
material,
so misapplied.
natural world, life comes from previously existing life of its own kind.
Oh, yeah. Call him BS on that definition.
That's not the definition. It was actually Louis Pasteur that proved the law of biogenesis. Now, what you've got to understand is that he only did it to show that spontaneous creation was not true, because people used to believe because bacteria just sort of came from nowhere as far as they could see, right? Before we really understood germ theory, they thought bacteria just came from nowhere. Frogs would sprout up from the ground and things like that. They didn't understand. So his thing was just to address that. It wasn't saying that in no way could life not have formed in the primordial past. That wasn't what he was saying. He was just saying, hey, instead of sort of germs appearing in the air, it's not the air that's creating them, it's microorganisms living on dust in the air. That's all that he was saying. But they sort of try and apply this to all circumstances and all things.
Yeah, AJ, can you highlight Beamsy's comment where he defines biogenesis? That seems like a much more legitimate definition, not the made-up one where they had to throw in kinds. I love that. These creationists just have to throw in kinds in their definition. They can't actually use a real definition.
Well, I know they don't cite it at all.
Well, maybe
the citation
quotation marks.
Let's.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, that must be a true citation from an official scientist then.
Let's see.
No.
Can I just say this guy has beautiful chocolate eyes? They're like M&Ms. His arguments are crap, but it's like biogenesis was back when they thought that flies and other pests would spontaneously just appear if you left a corpse out. They didn't realize.
I thought maggots actually came from rotting meat. I mean,
exactly. Not true.
We look at how people used to think about life. They said, no, life can arise spontaneously from non-living chemicals. And yet every single biological
they didn't
experiment
say that.
has shown us that that simply is biologically impossible.
Hold on, stop. Because that's not what they were saying. They were saying that God created those things in the, just say like the flies example, you have a dead body. They were saying that it was spontaneously created in that dead body. They didn't say non-living chemicals. This is where he's trying to equate it with abiogenesis. So he's loading these words into it. No, they thought God created stuff out of nothing, or out of non-living life. They didn't think it was like abiogenesis. No.
Yeah, and creationists say that you can't get life from non-life, but the constituent parts that make up our bodies, a lot of them are not alive, but they still make up a living organism because we're multicellular complex creatures. We're not just made up of living things, even though we are considered like one living thing. So, and like that video I mentioned with talking about organic chemistry, organic doesn't mean that something is alive. It just means, what did you say in that video, Grayson, that it has carbon in it?
Yeah, an organic molecule in a chemistry definition, organic just means that the molecule contains a carbon atom. It doesn't have to be all carbon. As long as it contains a carbon atom, it is an organic compound. But yeah, I mean, we've been at this for like 45 minutes and we're only on their third point. I mean, this is crazy.
Okay, I'll try to stop.
It's just the amount of BS that they keep including in here.
There's so many mistakes.
It's a short video. It's honestly impressive the amount of falsehoods that they've been able to pack into this 8-minute video.
Life doesn't arise from non-living chemicals. From where did life arise? Where did life originate if it doesn't arise from non-living chemicals? You see, the idea that there's no God suggests to us that there had to be some singularity without a cause that exploded, and that explosion brought about design, which we've never, ever seen happen. And then ultimately, somewhere the non-living chemicals gave rise to life. But that's biologically impossible. Life demands a supernatural creator.
Okay, pause it.
No, it doesn't.
Why does every single point they have to do a little dig at a singularity exploding from nothing? Every point they bring up, they have to bring back the Big Bang every single time. Why?
Because it is an argument from incredulity. So they want to make it sound as ridiculous as possible. They want to appeal to people's understanding of explosions and this kind of stuff. Like, if you exploded a bomb, it wouldn't create a 747 or something. This kind of incredulous language. Like, I can't believe you think a point exploded in space and suddenly life just formed out of nowhere. That isn't what we think. That's a complete straw man of the position. But it adds to that air of incredulity that he's trying to work up into a frenzy.
Proof number 4. Moral law demands a moral law giver. If some things are objectively morally right and other things are objectively morally wrong, then there must be a God. You see, if we
that's a big if.
No. Yeah, that's
one of these arguments have been like the same basic framework.
even if things are morally objectively right and wrong, and I don't believe they are, but you could appeal to some naturalistic moral law. I believe T-Jump does sort of this. He appeals to the best possible worlds. I think he's wrong about that, but
and a bunch of other things.
Sure, I mean, yeah, but the whole point is that you can make arguments for objective morality without a God. It's this question for Mark Reid. If you exploded your toilet, though, after smashing a delicious Wendy's Baconator, would that explosion crate life? Yes, it would put it right into a crate. I think that would be dragging that away. I presume you mean create life? Well, I mean, presumably the the toilet would have some kind of fecal matter, which is organics,
It would have
the
your gut
Baconator would have
bacteria in it, but it wouldn't
a
have created
lot
it.
of bacteria in it. So you know what? I've never eaten Wendy's. I'm just giving them shade for no reason.
I had a Baconator just a few weeks ago, but it did not cause any type of problems like you're describing here, Leo, and it was delicious. So this
regardless,
is slanderous.
I don't think that anybody here would argue it for objective morality existing. So this entire point of theirs is just falls flat on the face of it, because no one here would think that objective morality is real.
And even the Christians, even within their own Bible, I don't think that they really believe in objective morality, because they say, oh, well, we don't have to sacrifice animals anymore because Jesus was the final sacrifice. Well, was sacrificing animals was that objectively moral during the Old Testament times, and that was okay back then? Clearly it must have been, because it was demanded by God. But then in the New Testament and today, Christians don't sacrifice animals. They would be considered barbaric. It would be considered ridiculous.
Yeah, so that's a deep conversation. I don't want to get into it, but I think you're describing moral universalism rather than sort of moral realism. That things can still change and you can still have objective morals kind of thing, technically. But that's a whole other conversation. But you're right. Like, if God's eternal and God wants these moral laws to be there, then why do they change if God doesn't change? And there's a whole bunch of stuff there to sort of to think that, and there's no reason to think there's any objective morals. It just I agree with Leo. Moral realism seems really sure, Rusty, moral lawgiver could be us, sure, but then it would be entirely based upon our minds. Whatever's based upon our minds is by definition not objective, it's subjective, it's according to the subjects. So yes, that's true, but it still wouldn't be objective. In fact, if God just decided what the morals were, like if he just said, hey, this is what I want the morals to be, that's still not objective morality, because it's up to the subject. Now, the subject is a god, it's the most powerful thing ever, presumably, but it's still subjective. It's still, according to one person's mind.
Well, let's go ahead and finish this one out, because I think we've shown pretty emphatically. It's assumptions that it rests on are faulty, and even if they weren't, I mean, we've just pretty much dragged objective morality through the mud here. I don't think anyone's buying it.
Okay, just got to read another super chat from some old dude for $20. That says, if everything was designed by God, then there isn't anything that isn't designed. Are they actually implying that if you look at anything, you have to find design simply because it exists? Circular reasoning alert. Yes. Yeah. Totally well said, as your other comments are. I think maybe for this next argument, we'll try and let it play and then give our comments after, if we can stand to do that.
Okay.
All from primordial slime over multiplied millions of years. At what point did objective moral values arise? We don't look at a dog and say that that dog objectively, morally violated some rule when he steals a bone from another dog. We don't say, hey, he violated a objective moral value. We just don't say that. But
I wonder why we don't say that.
Humans can perpetrate things that are objectively morally wrong, that humans can be involved in things that are morally right. If that's true, there must be a God. Proof number 5, free will exists.
Oh, boy.
The atheistic idea that there is no God is founded on the idea of materialism, the idea that this material world is all that there is, all that there was, and all that there ever will be.
No, it's not.
Because of that,
that's not.
Atheism has to suggest that you as a person don't really have free will.
No, it doesn't.
That there is no being inside of your body or brain that...
That's not the orientation of the brain. I just had to say that.
That's exactly it. It's the spirit divided by the soul. That is the mathematical equation for the brain, if you didn't know.
Yeah, so far everything that they've said has been a complete logical falsehood. I mean, there's no like there's nothing in a materialistic framework that would prevent free will, or in an atheistic framework that would prevent free will. And there's tons of other religions that are not necessarily atheistic that would posit that there is no spirit or self in the center of all this. That like in a lot of Buddhist frameworks, they would have the notion that ultimately the self rests upon nothing and does not truly exist. So there are lots of different philosophical perspectives that are not materialism, that are not atheism, that would also posit that there's no free will. And there's nothing that necessitates the lack of free will in atheism or materialism. So they're wrong on basically every account.
Super matter, that really what's going on in your brain is just electrons bouncing around, and you're the product of those bounces, and you don't really make decisions on your own. It's just the physical laws and properties going on.
That does not follow. Just
Yeah,
because we're an emergent phenomenon of like electrical activity in the brain, that doesn't mean that no real decisions are being made. I mean, those do not follow. If consciousness is like a feedback loop, then that feedback loop can affect itself. And like that doesn't, I mean, I don't know. This is just, again, we're talking about emergent phenomenon of complex chaotic systems, which like,
well, different atheists have different viewpoints, Grace, and some of the determinists say that, hey, it is all up to previous causal effects of where you come out, and sort of say that. I'm more lean towards the compatibilist kind of things. I think that feedback loop is the out, or neuroplasticity, the ability to create pathways by repeating behavior, is sort of the way out for that. But if you're a hard determinist, you'll basically say what he's saying, but that's not a general atheistic thing. You have to be a proponent of hard determinism to even believe this.
Yeah, it's not necessitated.
Right, it's not necessitated at all.
Also, I could be wrong, but is it accurate to say that your brain sends electrons throughout the different neurons? Is that
the electrical activity would be coming from the flow of like salt ions that are like gated by your neurons? But I mean, I you know, there's electrons involved with all atoms. So
I guess okay. That just sounded wrong to me.
Yeah, it was a weird way of explaining it, but whatever. Yeah. Most people understand electrical activity in the brain.
Yeah.
Your brain. If you are watching this video of your own volition, then the fact of the matter is there has to be a God that can...
It's true. He got us.
Quick, turn the video off. Quick, turn the video off.
It's so true. If I turn the video off, for some reason, we decided to put ourselves through the torture of watching this video, and that proves that God exists.
That just proves I'm stupid. That's all that does. That just proves that I make bad decisions. That's all that proves.
This is like an 8-minute video.
I know. Hey, I'm enjoying myself, AJ. I'm fine. Like I'm good, mate. I'm enjoying myself.
And I just want to say we had 50 people watching right now. So thank you to all the people watching and hanging out in the side chat.
Count for good to see that free will that you as a person have. There has to be a God if there is free will. And proof number 6, human reasoning. You see, we reason on a regular basis. We understand abstract ideas. If we were products of blind, chance, random processes over multiplied millions of years, reasoning and the laws of reasoning simply would have no explanation.
Nope.
And yet we reason together on a regular basis.
From where can't let him get away with saying that. Can't let him get away with saying that. Because again, they want to just leave out natural selection. Like that's not like a blind process in that like it is like selecting based on environmental fitness. Guess what's going to be more fit for an environment? A creature that has reason or a creature that doesn't have reason. Like reasoning does have an advantage for natural selection. It makes sense why.
Well, reasoning arises from logic, and all logic is sort of descriptive of how our universe works, kind of thing. You know, it's more a descriptive language than anything else. So the idea that reason somehow comes from God, you've got to be able to demonstrate that in some way. Like, How are you going to demonstrate that is actually the case instead of just our universe works by certain natural laws, logic describes that, and then reason arrives from adhering to those laws of logic.
And it says, reason arise.
Oh, sorry,
It's got
Lewis.
no
Absolutely agree.
naturalistic-
Absolutely agree. Yeah, I don't believe in hard determinism, but yeah, we're definitely influenced by outside effects. That's nurture 101. Absolutely, I totally agree.
And
Atheistic-
personally, I don't know if I believe it that there's free will or not. I have no idea either way. So if somebody wants to make an argument to me about why free will does or does not exist, I'm all ears, but I don't have a strong position on it myself. And I don't think that anything about my worldview necessitates that I have one position or the other on free will. But again, I'm open to an argument hearing about why I definitely should or should not believe in free will. So,
Well, I'm a pragmatist, and the argument that I usually make is that as far as I'm concerned, I have the appearance of free will, and that's good enough for me. And
Yeah.
I have to, in my own reality, I have to basically assume that I do have it. So whether I do or don't, I have the appearance of it, and I think that that's enough for me to function and do the things I need to do within my life.
also, to answer his question, reason would come from neural nets, brains, consciousness, which does have reasons why it would be selected for. There are definitive fitness advantages that come from reasoning. You can imagine even the most simple of setups where you only have one input, right? You have one little cell that says if there's light or if there's not light. And if you have a very fundamental neural network that responds in the presence of light to swim towards it and swim away from darkness, then hey, that's a very fundamental form of reasoning there. I mean, that would also have, anyone can understand why that would have fitness benefits for a creature to be able to respond to its environment in a reasonable way. So that's where reason arises, is from evolution, natural selection.
Explanation. Antony Flew, the atheist who wrote Theology and Falsification, the most popular atheistic paper for the last 100 years, the last century.
Literally have never heard of this person or that paper. So
in 2006, he co-wrote a book titled There Is a God, How the World's Most Notorious Atheist Became a Believer. He stated that his rule of life had always been to follow the evidence where it leads. And he said he followed that evidence. And it led him to the conclusion that there is a supernatural, intelligent God. Let's let the evidence lead us to that same conclusion.
Good old Kyle Butt.
His name is Kyle Butt.
Oh yeah, you didn't know that?
No. Oh man.
I think Kyle's pulling a lot of stuff out of his butt. Look, I could point out tons of people that have deconverted. One person, no matter who it is, sort of converting is not proof that your God exists. It's proof that one person was convinced. We can point to priests and people who are very, very pious going, hey, I don't think this is real. So that's not proof of a God that one person deconverted or converted, whoever it may be.
Yeah. So just wanted to show this meme real quick from Metal Gear Rising. And this is on my Twitter page. So if you want to see more stuff like this, you can follow me on Twitter. It's just @AtheistJr. And I also wanted to say real quickly that since the video is basically over, is that my channel just hit 7,500 subs, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. And it's happened really fast. So thank you. Thank you to the people who subscribed and sent super chats and hung out with us. And also go and subscribe to Mark and Grayson's channel. I'll definitely put the links to those in the description of this video, and I think they'll probably re-upload this, but I'm sure that we'll do more collabs in the future. So I'm glad that you guys came along to do this. Thank you for that.
Thanks, AJ, and congratulations on your channel's success. And I just want to say that Mr. Butt has convinced me tonight. I have officially converted to theism. So if Mark or AJ, if you ever want to debate me about the existence of God, I now have 6 foolproof arguments that I have in my arsenal to defeat any atheist that wants to come at me. So come on, an open challenge to all you atheists out there. Debate me on fundamental creationism. So,
well, me and Mark did have a debate where I played the role of a creationist, and
Yeah,
I
that
won.
was fun.
So that was good.
Oh, absolutely. I totally ruined. You know, you and Jill are the people that ruined me, apparently.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah.
And another super chat from some old dude for $5. It says, I'm not a hard determinist. I'm a downright easy determinist. So easy, I never make any effort. Why should I, since I don't ultimately have any choice?
That reminds me of something Christopher Hitchens used to say, and that was sort of I must believe there is free will. I have no choice, right? Like, it was such a good comment about the paradox of free will kind of thing. I loved it. But thank you so much for having me on, AJ and Grayson. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, AJ. And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. If you do like debates, come and subscribe. And I do a lot of fun stuff. So, yeah, thank you so much for giving me your time. And it's been a blast, guys. I really want to do this again soon. It's been so fun.
Yeah. Any final comments? Oh,
I was going to say that you guys made what was otherwise an interminable, unbearable video actually pretty fun to watch with you guys. So thanks.
Yeah. So my
like
power is like flickering and going out. So
I know. I thought you got captured by the Holy Spirit just then. You know, you turned white and ghostly. I was like, oh, it's AJ got. Yeah. No, actually, I like this. I'm of the opinion if somebody wants to give you terrible arguments for God, let them. Like, these are bad, right? They're absolutely horrendous. I like finding flaws in them. I really do, because they're that terrible. But you know, that's just my opinion. I find them amusing, if nothing else. Were you raised a theist, Grayson?
No, actually, I've got a pretty interesting story with that. So I was raised like in the complete ignorance of religion or God at all. I didn't know that anybody believed in it. It was never a topic that was discussed. I never went to church. Was never really exposed to any theists. So it was only like in 5th grade, a kid came up to me and like shoved me up against the hallway and was like, "You're an atheist, aren't you?" And I was like, "A what?" Like, I had no idea what that was. And he said, "It means that you believe in science instead of God." And then I was like, "Oh, then yeah, I guess I am one of those." And then he tried to punch me and we got into a fight. So that was my first introduction to even what atheism is as a concept. And then
Bully
it wasn't
teaches
until
you about atheism. That's
it wasn't until after that, because I was raised with like the idea of Santa Claus and Christmas, but it was just kind of separated from like a God or a religious aspect of it. It was more cultural. But in like 1st grade, something about flying reindeer with no wings didn't make any sense to me. And I was like, yeah, Mom, Santa Claus doesn't exist, does he? She said, "Oh, how'd you figure it out?" And I said, "Oh, and the Easter Bunny." She's like, "Oh yeah, and God." And like, so even as a kid, I kind of looped those things together. And it wasn't until several years later that I actually realized, like, wait, the adults are serious about this one. Like, I thought it was like the adults were pretending for the kids. And I thought the whole time it was just like Santa Claus. It wasn't until middle school I legitimately saw like one of my adult teachers like praying and like taking it all seriously, and not in a case where it was just a show for the kids. And I was like, wait a minute, they actually believe this stuff. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, sorry to get sidetracked.
Mark, you should interview Grayson one of these days.
I should start doing more interviews. I did really enjoy that. I've been trying to get Amy on for a while, but Amy's slippery and hard to pin down.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I interviewed her a while back, but
oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I think this is the last super chat. I hope I didn't miss any. So from Beamsy for $5 Australian, it says, "Make sure to tune in next time. AJ, Mark, and Grayson do more butt stuff." So yeah, if I can find another video from him, maybe.
You got to join
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
OnlyFans for that content.
Okay,
Okay.
we're signing
Yeah.
off. So bye-bye. See you guys later. Thanks for watching.